I know I've got hard competition, so it's really good to see you all here. Today we're going to be talking about how to use PSReadLine to maybe be more productive at the command line. We're going to be talking about the history, a lot about command handlers and so on. My name's Anthony Allen. I'm a kind of DevOps / automation engineer at Snow Software, but we'll go more into that later. This session, PSReadLine, I'm pretty sure most of you know, but it's basically shipped with PowerShell since PowerShell 5, I believe. If you install PowerShell 7 preview now that came out last Friday or last Thursday, you actually get the latest beta PSReadLine 2.0 beta 4, I think. So if you don't update to that pre-release, it's pretty stable. I haven't had any problems with it, but I suggest you install module, allow pre-release on there. There's some bug fixes there, and yeah, it's stable, in my opinion. PSReadLine gives you lots of nice things on the command line, syntax coloring. It'll give you some error notifications if you some kind of error handling there. You can do so much with customizable key bindings. And all the options in there, including the colors and everything, are very customizable as well. So we'll be kind of talking about that, mostly about kind of searching the history and then looking at the key bindings and setting the key bindings to what you prefer, using the completion effectively, and then the largest chunk of this talk is going to be about writing custom key handlers. So with that, I don't have any more slides. The rest I'm doing is a PSReadLine based presentation. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, let's start. Okay, oh, you haven't got my screen. So, yeah. Has anyone here read the sample PSReadLine profile that ships with PSReadLine? None. No. One person, two people. Okay. Well, okay, you're probably going to get a lot out of this talk then. I hope so anyway. This is basically a sample profile that actually ships with PSReadLine. It's in, if you look, I'm just getting the module base directory, and there's a file in there called sample PSReadLine profile. And if we just open that, we can see there is a whole bunch of stuff that the original author, Jason Shirk, has put in there. These are key bindings that he thought were nice that he's done for himself, but they weren't really what he wanted to put into the default key handlers in PSReadLine. So here you've got like, it's just have a look through and have a read through. If I open up my other session here, you got things like it will give you matching quotes, so you can type stuff in the matching quotes. The same with if you delete one quote, it'll delete the other one. You have like matching brackets there as well, amongst a whole bunch of other things. Everything that I learned about PSReadLine, I stole mostly from this sample profile. So yeah, go in there and read that. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. Some stuff doesn't quite work for me, so I haven't taken everything. But yeah, this is really good to spend a couple of hours to go through there because there's a lot of stuff. And of course, help about PSReadLine. If you look in the help, there's documentation about all the functions that are built in there, all the methods on the PS console readline objects that we'll be speaking about later. It'll tell you what each of the kind of key handlers do that are mapped to different keys, and it's very long and comprehensive, and I recommend you have a read through that as well. If we run get PSReadLine option, we'll have here all the options that you could get with PSReadLine. So here, PSReadLine obviously can, or as I said, you can use to change the colors or the themes of your console. Basically, you can do this by hand, by setting all these colors if you want to, but there is a module which we'll show in a second. And then you've got things like, I have a colleague that got really disturbed by every time he's doing backspace with nothing at the command line, it's going ding, 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 ding. That's PSReadLine. So you probably want to set the bell style to none here if that's bothering you and you're wondering why that is. Just put that into your profile. Set PSReadLine option, bell style, none, I think it is, or silent. So yeah, that's basically the options. If you want to change the color themes, you don't have to do it by hand. There is a module to do that for you called PS Console Theme. In the latest releases, I'm not sure if it's in the 2.0 release, but they changed how the colors are set in PSReadLine options. So if you install this module, allow pre-release, because that's got the fix to use it with the latest versions of PSReadLine. So yeah, so if you have a look in there, there's a whole bunch of themes here. We can... yeah, you've got like, if you want to kill your eyes maybe. I'm going to stick with Redmond because it's quite nice. So yeah, you can set the themes, whatever it is, and you can do that manually if you want by going in and setting the, I think it's like the anti-escape sequences for the colors. Yeah, if we have a look at the actual commands in PSReadLine, there's not many. Basically, you've got the key handlers and the options, and not much more than that. We've had a look at the options, so let's have a look at the key handlers. There's a lot of them, a whole bunch of them. And these will change depending on what mode you want to use, which we'll go through in a minute. But if you're in the middle of typing a command, and you want to know what a certain key is, or you want to get a list of the options, there's actually a key binding for this. So if you're typing something, if you notice I'm already on the command now, instead of having to delete that and have a look at what all the commands are, I can do Control, Alt, and question mark, and it will give me all the list of the commands. Or you could do Alt and question mark, and it will give you what is key. So there I can do like maybe Control R, what is Control R, and it will tell you what that key is. So you can do that anytime you're at the command line without having to delete anything you have there. And we'll do some more similar key bindings later on. So that was the basics, basically. We're going to go on to the next part, which is history. History is like using the history features of PSReadLine is like the biggest time saver that I have. It's what I do every day. There's three options or three lines that you want to add to your profile if you haven't already. This is the first one, set PSReadLine option, history, search cursor moves to end. This basically means when you look through the history or when you search through the history, it's just going to move the cursor to the end of the line. Otherwise, the cursor is going to stay in the same position, and that can be irritating. The next one is to set the PSReadLine key handler up arrow to history search backward. And the last one is the down arrow to history search forward. What I'll do is I'll just give you a little demonstration of what this does. So we have a URL. This isn't going to work because I don't have any internet connection. But basically, if I have like a command that I typed a long time ago that I know what it began with, I can type $URL and press up arrow, and it will bring back that command. So I could just rerun it. And it's the same if you, same with down arrow as well. You can search down in history. If I go to... You also have another history function as well, Control R to search backwards in history and Control S to search forwards. And this is kind of the same thing, but actually it's like a free text search. So if I was to Control R and search for history, then and then Control R, I can cycle through all the command lines that I've typed with the word history in and go back to that. This persists over your sessions. So if you wrote something like several months ago that you're going kind of like, oh, I knew it had this certain word in, you can do Control R and you can bring back that command to your command line. It really is a huge time saver. The PSReadLine history is just a text file. That's all it is. If we have a look at the PSReadLine option, the property history path, here's my history file. Every time you type something, it'll get added to this file. Now, this can probably be a bit shaky, because what I'll do is I'll open up my other, if we go like this. Here I'm just getting the content of my history file. So now I'm going to do a super secret, a string, and I'm going to convert it to a secure string. Uh-oh, that's gone into my history file. You know, if anyone gets hold of that, I'm pretty sure a lot of people in here have got some kind of sensitive stuff in that history file that they don't really want anyone else to know. But there is a way you can resolve that. If we go to... There's an option in PSReadLine option, which is add to history handler. This basically takes a script block, which takes one parameter, which is the line you've entered, and then you can return true or false. So here I've just added a really simple one that if the line doesn't match as plain text, which is the parameter in convert to secure string, then it's okay to add to the history. If it does match as plain text, I don't want that into the history. So just to prove that works, I'll write host psconf is great. You can see that's added to my history there. And I'll rerun that same command again. Doesn't get added to my history. So you probably want to do something. A lot of people have different kinds of API keys or tokens or regexes or stuff that they might type the command line that they don't want to add to the history. So it's probably a very custom thing, the regexes you want to add to that. So yeah, that's the way you go about not putting stuff in your history. And obviously that you won't be able to search that because it's not there. So yeah, that was a short run through on the history. We'll go to the next one, which is editing. There's 3 main editing modes in PSReadLine, and all it does is it connects certain keybinds. It has default key bindings to a lot of the default functions that I showed you in the about PSReadLine help file. You have 3 options here. You have Emacs, VI, and Windows. I think in PowerShell 5 it was like Windows. Some stuff's kind of changed. I prefer Emacs because the muscle memory that I use in PowerShell then is the same muscle memory, excuse me, that I use in the bash prompt, in the bash terminal. You have like Alt-A to go back to the beginning of the line, and yeah, you got Alt-B to go backwards word, Alt-F to go forwards, and so on. So Emacs is my preferred one. Some of the stuff I'll be showing is mostly in Emacs. You have Windows, which obviously is default, and then if you have a beard, there's VI. So yeah, I'm not going to actually open VI because I may spend the rest of the session trying to get out again. So, and I'm not going to. And one thing that you do want to note, if you do run this set PSReadLine option edit mode, it'll actually write over all your current key bindings. So I'm not going to do that. And you just have to .source your profile again, basically. There's some kind of terminology. If you look at the description for these key handlers, and you see a lot of kill and yank. And for a long time, I was like, what's kill and yank? These are words that I've never heard before. And all it is cut and paste. These are like words that predated cut and paste in old like Unix terminology. So if we have a look at the get PSReadLine key handler and have a look at all the functions that have kill or yank in the name, we have a whole bunch of them. So everything where it's like backwards kill line control U, that will just basically move the entire, if we go up and do a control U, that will move the entire line into the kill ring, which is basically the copy buffer. So you can have lots of text, lots of text queued up in there in your kill ring. And then you can like pull them out one by one. There's using like yank pop. So if I do control Y, which is if we see, where is it? Oh. Yeah, control Y here. So yeah, which is yank. That basically get it back out of that copy buffer for you. I'm not going to go through all of these because these are just like stuff that you really want to kind of take some time and try and get into muscle memory. If I just say what they do, then you're not going to remember it because there's just so much here. One thing I will point out is like 2 really handy key bindings that I really like, which is the yank last arg, which is mapped to alt plus dot. And basically that pulls the last parameter from the last command that you run and puts it into the current command line. This is really nice when you're doing like you create a new directory. So we create a really long directory name, and then we want to CD to that, and then you can just do alt dot, and it'll pull that last command, and you'll be able to CD into it. It's a nice little time saver. It's the same with control alt and Y, which is yank nth arg, which takes the first parameter. So if you have like a really long command line, but you just want to take that first parameter and pull it into the current command line, you do control alt and Y. Yeah, a quick word on digit arguments. Almost all, we'll have a look later, but all functions, or most functions, take a digit argument or a numeric argument. So most of the time, this is like repeating something several times. So if I had like this, and I wanted to delete the last 5 words, I use alt and 5 to specify the numeric argument 5, and then I'll do alt and backspace, which will no, it's the last. It doesn't work with alt and backspace, but it works with characters anyway. So if I wanted to delete the last 10 characters, I do alt 10 to specify 10, and then backspace, and that will delete 10 characters for me. A lot of the functions take these numeric arguments. As I said, they're mostly to repeat something several times. If we have like if you just want to, if you use it on a normal key, it'll repeat that key 10 times, or the amount of times. So you can do like alt 10, and then if I did X, it will repeat X 10 times. So if you do some repetition, that's nice to know. So yeah, that was basically a little bit about editing. As I said, there is a ton of editing commands, not just in the kill yank, but moving forward, backwards. There's a lot of repeats, there's functions that are mapped to several key handlers. It depends, it's obviously whatever you think is best to use. But yeah, I suggest you go in and have a read, and then try it. The way I did it was like try and get one in my muscle memory like every other day, and then go on to the next one and go on to the next one, because otherwise if you try learning all of it, it's just going to be too much. So yeah, let's have we've already done this one. Completion. I mean, most people know what completion is. Maybe not everyone knows that it comes from PSReadLine. That helps you here. If you have Windows, the old Windows, I think in PSReadLine, in the Windows key bindings, it has now changed to complete, but the default is tab complete next now. So if I did get child and then press tab, it will tab through the items. This is the classic way that most people are used to. If you have Emacs, then the function is complete, which means if I do get child and then tab, it will just capitalize and tab again, and it will give me a list of the possible completions that I can use. So then I can just use that, use tab to complete it after I've made it unambiguous what I want to type. Menu complete is really, really handy. It will give you a menu, but that's not the best part according to me. I really like the tooltips that it gives you. It gives you some really nice contextual information about the command you want to do. If you've ever used tab expansion ++, or you've created tab completers, there's a parameter or an argument that you can specify there that will says what tooltip you want to use. I'll give you a demonstration. So if I was to do get child and then control space, I'll get a menu that I can select from using the arrow keys. And then this is the tooltip at the bottom. This will give you the context of the command you want to run. And then it's the same with the properties. If I was to look here, then it'll give me the actual type that the property is expecting. Which I think is really nice. And if you can actually write custom completers that give you that can customize this string here. I've done this at my work by giving some contextual information about VMs in VMware, such as like an IP address or a description, and it just saves a lot of time when you're doing this, because it isn't just parameters. This is on actually when you write a completer for any command. So for a parameter. If you haven't written completers earlier, I really recommend looking at Bartek's presentation from like 2 years ago, I think it was, where he wrote about tab expansion ++ and writing custom completers. Is a really good session, and yeah, have a look at that. Yeah, one other thing as well, like I use .NET types quite a lot. So if I have a look at PS console readline and I want to do control space, let's do set. Then if you move over, it will actually give you the overload definitions of all the methods that you have here. This is really nice information to have, because sometimes you don't, especially when there's a lot of parameters in that method, you're not going to remember what it is. So it's nice to see that. This was actually the inspiration for one of my custom key bindings that I'm going to show later on. But this is really nice information for quickly doing stuff without having to open up documentation, or maybe doing a get member or something and deleting everything you've got on your line at the moment. So yeah, I think we're ready for, I think that's at the end, yeah. So now we're ready for the last part, which is the biggest part, which is the custom key bindings. So basically, everything that you do in, more or less everything that you do in readline is a method on this class, a static method on this class, PS console readline. If we have a look there, you've got just tons of stuff there. Every single key binding is more or less mapped to one of these functions. And then buried in these, you have also some helper function methods that you can use when you're writing your custom key handlers, which I'm going to go through. So there's really only, when you're writing custom key handlers, there's only really 6 methods that you kind of use often, or that I've really seen any use for. The first one is accept line. This is basically the enter key. If we have a look at what is the enter key, we'll see that's actually accept line. That's just running that method. So that's the way of doing it programmatically. So if you add anything onto the line and then you want to press enter, then you run accept line, and that'll press enter for you. Get buffer state. This is the one that actually gets the contents of the current line that you've currently written in the console. There's 2 overloads for this. If I yeah, there's 2 overloads for this. There's string and cursor. One thing I will point out, which I'll show later on, is none of these methods actually return any type. Anything that you want to get out there, you have to supply as a reference variable. So here we add in like the first overload, want to get the line as a string, and the cursor is just the position of the cursor. If you want to do something a little bit more involved, like analyzing the AST and doing something based on that, or all the tokens in the current command line, then you use the second one, the second overload, which will return you like the AST, the tokens of the command line, yeah, any errors, and yeah, I'll show you what that does soon. Get selection state, self-explanatory. That'll get, if you like select any text, that'll tell you where the start of the selection is and where the end of the selection is, so you can do some smart stuff if you want to copy it somewhere or do something. Oh, so invoke prompt. This will basically just draw a new prompt on the screen. This is kind of, there's not a lot of times you will want to use this, but I'll show you when you do want to use it. There's actually an undocumented argument. This takes a numeric argument, but it's not documented what it does, and I had to find out by looking at the source code that it tells invoke prompt which line in the console you want to draw the new prompt on. So if you output anything to the console, then you invoke prompt with a number of the new line you want the prompt to be on. And again, I'll show you how that works soon. Yep, and replace. This basically takes text you want to replace. So on the current line you specify the start of where you want to replace, the end of where the length of the text you want to replace, and then the actual replacement, and that will just replace it. That will put the new text into that place. All of these we're going to be going through in the demo code. And then I think this is the last one, which is revert line, and that basically just deletes everything on the line. Oh, no, it wasn't the last one. Set cursor position. This one is used to move the cursor like what I'm doing with the arrow keys now. You can do that programmatically by using set cursor position. So I'm going to import all my key handlers that I've written, and I'm going to demo them. So one thing that I do all the time is when I'm working on the command line, I'll cd to a new directory, and instead of like typing out, this is too much typing for me, insert code insiders or code dot to open up the current directory in VS Code. So I've actually mapped this to Control Alt and C, which will open the current directory in VS Code. I'll close that one and we'll have a look at how I've done that. This is like the really simplest. These kind of key handlers are going to start off pretty simple, and then we're going to kind of up the complexity as we go along. So here you can see all I've done is delete everything on the line, insert code insiders dot, which will just basically insert code insiders dot on the line, and then press enter, and then we'll open up that current command line. And here obviously I've mapped that to Control Alt and C. There's a simple one. Format code. This is, I'm not sure how many people would probably use this, but for me it's useful, so maybe someone else finds it useful as well. But sometimes when I'm like writing a really long command line, I won't for each, and then I'll do that. And then if I've got like lots of nested kind of for each is, and there's lots of brackets everywhere and I'm getting confused where what's going on, I can do Control F and it will format my code. So yeah, all that, as you saw, all that did was just add an indent there. Basically, this is using the invoke formatter command from PSReadLine. All I do here is, you can see here I specify, I initialize the variables line and cursor because these are the reference variables that I want to get back from get buffer state. I run get buffer state, so now my current line that I've written is saved into this variable line, and the cursor position is saved into cursor. And then I run invoke formatter, which is, as I said, it's in the PSReadLine with the code formatting shroop. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but that's my preferred coding style. And then the return from that, for some reason, it might be a setting that you can change somewhere, but there's carriage return line feeds in there from the string that you get back. And in PSReadLine or in the console, they're only line feeds. So here I have to replace all the carriage returns with nothing, basically, just get rid of them. And then finally, I replace the entire line. So starting at 0 and the entire line length, and I insert the new formatted string. Yep. Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Yeah, he just wanted me to enlarge the text, sorry. Yeah. Is that better, or is it a little bit bigger? Is that good? Yeah? Can you see at the back? Yep, cool. So yeah, basically I've just replaced the entire length with the newly formatted string. You could like revert line and then insert if you want to do. This is just the route that I took, whatever works for you. So yeah, code macros. I kind of got this inspiration half from, this is something that's in the sample PSReadLine profile that I spoke about. And what Jason does is he marks, if he's in a directory, he'll mark it with a key. So he'll do a key handler, and then he'll press a key, and it will save that directory to that key. So if I do M, it will save like that current directory to M. And then if I'm somewhere else, then you can use another key handler, and then press M again to return to that saved directory. So I kind of took it from there, and when I was actually researching to do this session, I had to look at the documentation for Readline, which is the inspiration for PSReadLine, which is an old Unix implementation of Readline. And they have this thing called macros, where you can save certain text to keys or to certain key patterns. So I kind of took that from there. So if you have like something that you do a lot for format list, format table. auto size. So what I can do is I can highlight this text, and I'll do Alt M, and then I'll save that to F format. I pressed F after I pressed Alt M. So now when I've saved that to F, and now I can do like this, same again, and then Alt capital M, and then F again, which is what I saved it to, and it will copy that from that key that I've saved it to. So if you have something you type a lot of long commands and you want to save it to a key for future use, then you can kind of do this to save keys. Now let's have a look at the code. So basically at the beginning I'm starting, I'm creating a global variable. I know people are not so keen about global variables, but I kind of think this is what needs to be done to be able to continue accessing the variable. And then the first thing I do is do console read key. So the next key that I press after I've done the key handler is going to be saved to this key variable. And then I have to do a little bit more funky stuff here, because I need to find out what I have on the screen. So I get the selection start, I run get selection state, and and get the current selection of the text I have on the screen, and then I have to get the line. And if selection start is greater than 0, if you don't actually have any selection, if you haven't selected anything, then selection start will be -1. So if it's greater than 0, then I've actually selected something, and I want to save that as the line that I want to save to that specified key. And then basically I just add to my hash table that I created with the key of the key I just pressed, and the value is the line I want to save. So if I haven't selected anything, it will save the entire line. If I have selected something, it will save that selected line to that key. And then I have another key handler here, which is really simple. And basically it just reads the key again, and then it inserts from that hash table with the key as the key.
Where does it get saved physically?
Pardon?
Is it get saved into a text file somewhere?
These keys, no, they don't get saved. These will die with your session. I mean, like, you can maybe do something where you save it to some kind of JSON file if you want to, with another key handler. But for stuff that you use more often, I'm coming to that. So yeah. Open line encode. This is something that's also kind of a feature of PSReadLine, where you do Control-X, Control-E, and if you have like an executable, say VI, which is the most common console editor that you probably use, you specify an executable to VI or Vim, and then it will open up the current command line there, so you've got a little bit more richer code editing experience. The problem is I had a look through the source code, and you can't use parameters. Oh, we need to do the same in VS Code, but you can't. When you run a new process in VS Code, you have to use /wait and /new window, so that the command line doesn't continue until you finish in VS Code. And you couldn't do that using PSReadLine. So I could probably do a pull request to fix that, but I thought it'd be like more fun to write a key handler to do that for me. So if I have like a really long command line, and I'm like, oh dear, this is going to be really long, I want IntelliSense and stuff in this line, I'll do Control-X and E, and it will open up a file with that command line in, and then I can I'll get like for each object, and then I'm just going to do some stuff here, and then I'm like, okay, I'm finished with this, I'll close this, and when I close it, it'll actually output what I've just done into the command line. So it's probably nice if you're doing like a really long command that you want to work on. And I'll show you how we did this. So here again, we're basically just getting the buffer, getting the line and the cursor. We're creating a new temporary file, renaming it to PS1. We're setting the content to the current command line, and then we run code with new window and wait on that file. And then once it's come back, here again, VS Code inserts carriage return line feeds, so we want to get rid of all those carriage returns. And then we just put that back out spit that back out into the command line, and then remove that temporary file. It's really simple. So yeah, it's nice. Don't use it that often, but it's nice that it's there. Resolve path. This is a handy one, because if anyone uses Docker or like some not .NET methods, If you like do a Docker run, I don't know, a PowerShell, and then if you want to mount a volume on there, you'll do a volume, and then you specify, I like specify this, and then if you try to do this, it's going to complain that it doesn't like it doesn't like relative paths. So instead of going, oh God, I've got to go back in and edit that, I said, I created the key handler, XP, which will resolve that path for you. So there's a lot of, as I said, .NET methods out there that don't take relative paths, so this is a nice little time saver. So yeah, let's have a look at how this is done. This one was a little bit more involved, because at the end of the day, you could have like a really long command line, and if I had like a Docker run PowerShell path, and then I got like some more stuff, and I want to do a command over here, and I'm like, okay, I've got to go back to this path here, and I want to expand this path this path that's under the cursor at the moment. So what we have to do is here we get the buffer state using the simple line one, but now we also have to get the tokens back to find out where the cursor is at the moment. So this I've also stolen from the sample PSReadLine profile. Basically, we get the buffer state, so we get back the AST and the tokens, and it's really only the tokens we're interested in, and we just basically loop through the tokens, and each token has an extent which specify where that token begins and where it ends. So we get the current cursor position, and we see if the start offset of the token is lower than the cursor, and if the end offset of the token is greater, that means that token there that we've got is the one where the cursor is at the moment. And then once we've got that token, then we come out of this loop. So if we've got a token, then basically all we do is we get the text of that path, we run resolve path on there. If we got a resolved path, then we'll replace the old value. We'll just get the here we'll get the extent text. We'll get the text that we got back, and then we'll replace it with the new resolved path. This is because the path can be in like quotes or single quotes, and instead of writing a load of logic to work out if it's single quotes or quotes, which will come back in the token, then I just do a replace of the old unresolved path to the new resolved path. And then we just put that back into the command line at that position. So here you can you see I'm replacing the text at the start of the token starts, and then the length of the token, and then I'm replacing it with a newly replaced text. So yeah, that was that. Show syntax. This is where I got my inspiration from those tooltips that I showed near the beginning. If you're doing, especially if you're doing like a PS console readline, and then get buffer state. If you do like a control space here, nothing happens. Sometimes I'm writing, invoking a method that's got quite a long signature, and I can't remember what all the parameters are. So basically, I created control I, which will give you which will show you what the overloads are to that method you are at the moment. This also works with commands. So if I did like a get child item, and I wanted to, what was the syntax of get child item? I'll do a control I, and it will give me the syntax of get child item. So this is like quite a nice time saver without having to like delete stuff and then and then look up stuff on the internet or stuff. You can be in the middle of typing something, control I, and you'll get what the syntax is of that method or command. This one was even more complicated. It actually turned out more work than I thought it would be. So here again, we're getting the buffer state using both overloads, the line and getting the AST back. And then here, what I've done is I'm actually using this function is from command PS editor services, command editor services. That's the motor to VS Code. This is a helpful function here that I've kind of slightly modified so it isn't dependent on VS Code, because it's really nice for finding elements in the AST. I might speak to Tyler later on and see if we can maybe pull this out into its own module, because I think it's really nice for finding elements in the AST. if you want to know more about the AST, I'm going to be talking about it on Friday. So here, basically what I'm doing is that I've got the cursor back, and I've got the AST of the line that I've currently written, and so I want to get the smallest possible AST object from where the cursor is at the moment. And then again, using find AST, I want to find the nearest parent to that AST object that is either an invoke member expression AST, which is like a .NET .NET type, that what we had here, the get buffer state, PS console readline get buffer state, or if it's a command AST, if it's a command. So the next thing I do is I get the cursor position, or I get the last position of, if it's a command, if it's like get child item, I'll get the position of the just after the last end of the last letter of the get child item. If it's like this get buffer state, I want to get the position just here after the E. And then basically I kind of fool the completion engine in PowerShell into thinking that that's my current position. So I basically call command completion, and I input the line and tell it my cursor position is at the end of the command or the method that I want to get the tooltip back from. And that will just return me the tooltips, and I pull that out. There might be other ways to do this a bit more nicely, but it's like kind of a succinct, easier way to do it. So basically, if in here in completion matches, I've just pulled out that tooltip and saved it to a string. And then finally, I have to do some math here that I didn't really wanted to do, but I had to do anyway. And basically, I have to look at where my current cursor is, which line on the console it is, and then I have to calculate how many rows this completion matches takes up. Because like if it's like there's a row that's like 150 characters long, and the buffer width or the console width is only 80, it's going to wrap over to a new line. So you have to like work out how many lines it's going to take out. And then basically, once I've worked out how many lines it's going to take up, I write out that tooltip to the screen, and I invoke prompt with the new position, which is how many lines down it is. So if we have a look at the if we have a look here, there's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 9 lines here. So I want to, when I run invoke prompt with the current cursor position plus 9, it will invoke a new prompt under this text here. If you don't do that, then it's going to invoke a new prompt up here, and it's going to be all in the middle of this text. So yeah, I only have a couple of minutes left, so I will show you the quick last one. Snippets. This is something that's quite a big time saver, I guess. If you're doing like a select object, and then you want to use the expression where a script block or it's a hash table with a name and expression keys, and the value is another expression of what you want to get out. It's quite a lot of typing. So basically, I created a snippet, cell exp, and then I'll do a Control J. And that will just basically replace select expression with the hash table and the script block, and it's also moved the cursor to where I actually want to type. If you see here, so that's a nice one if you're doing like a custom object. I've done PS cust obj, and that will replace it with the PS custom objects, and it will give you where you want to start typing the string here. So it's like snippets of the command line. It can save you a fair bit of time. And we'll go through this one quickly, really quickly. Again, we're getting back the buffer state from both the line and the AST. We're using the same logic that we did earlier on to find the current cursor position, get the current token that we want to extend. So that's like the cell exp or the PS custom obj, which is the key for the snippet that we want to insert. And then basically, we have to go through. I have a JSON file, which I can probably show you here. Sorry, this is... Yep, okay. Basically, I have my snippets.json here. Wait. Which is basically the cell exp and PS cust obj, and I have like the JSON escape snippet here, which is the ones I want to use. So this is where you could use these to persist over sessions. You can create this JSON file and then use this to insert your snippets that you want. And yeah, basically we look at for the token we want to change, we get the contents of that snippet from the JSON file and then replace that token with the actual value from that JSON file, using more or less the same things that we did earlier. So that was the end of my demos. I don't have much more to add here. Yeah, so basically, PSReadLine has lots of editing functionality, which means you don't have to go into the VS Code or ISE. You can do a lot of stuff just using PSReadLine. Using the history there is a massive time saver for me. And then what you want to do with your key bindings, you're only limited by your own imagination, really. So yeah, slides and demo code will be up shortly. Not yet. I'll do a pull request to the repo here. And any questions? Yeah.
Do you know a place to share about key bindings and stuff?
All my key bindings here will be in the demo code that you can get from GitHub. The question was, will I be able to share all my key bindings here? So yeah, all this code will be available on GitHub. One thing, as you said, the whole demo was done using PSReadLine. There's also a demo.ps1 there, which is probably kind of interesting to look at. So
it's not only about your snippets. In general.
Oh, general. No, I mean this is no. I mean there's no central repository for snippets. This is something that I kind of done myself with some stuff that I usually use. But of course, I was kind of thinking about maybe passing the snippets files that come with VS Code, the PowerShell extension for VS Code, and putting them in. But there's a lot of like DSC stuff and like advanced functions and stuff that you maybe really don't want to do on the command line that you only really want to do. So kind of things like custom objects, select expressions, kind of like longer stuff like that you probably want to add as a snippet. But it's very personal, I guess, what you want to put in there. Any? Yes?
There's an interpreter in VS Code. There's a shell itself. Do you spend any time in the interpreter? Or do you spend more time, if you're using these customizations, you spend more time on it?
So the question was, there's the PowerShell extension for VS Code, that's what you meant, yeah. Do I spend more time in the terminal or in VS Code? It's about 50-50, I'd say. I mean, I do write a lot of modules and stuff in my daily work and a lot of PowerShell scripts, so obviously there I use Visual Studio Code. If I'm just doing ad hoc stuff at the command line, if I'm querying Azure or VMware or JSON, REST APIs and stuff like that, then I'll do that in the command line because it's much quicker for me. Anyone else? If anyone has any cool ideas for some kind of key bindings, come and grab me and we can maybe work on it and see if we can put that into action. Yeah, just pull my arm whenever, in the coffee break or at the zoo this evening. So yeah, my name's Anthony Allen, as I said, DevOps, build, automation engineer, not quite sure what brackets to put myself in. I work for Snow Software. If any of you build portals for users with PowerShell in the back end, or that'd be interested for you, have a look at our automation platform. If you want to know more about that, just talk to John, put your hand up, John. Yeah, John works there. And there's Björn as well, which some of you may know. He's got a ponytail and he's wearing a Sad Joey t-shirt. They work in that team and they'll be happy to talk to you about it. So yeah, thank you very much for coming to my session.